Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, and today we are going to be doing a drawing. Um, Today I'm going to focus on illustrative drawing, basically a more stylized version of drawing, like that you would see in a comic strip, for example. Um, you can use a number two pencil. In fact, I've got one here. You can see I've worn the eraser down quite a bit. But what number two stands for is, see that little HB right above there? So what that means is that it is directly in the middle between the hard and the bold scales. So your hard scales, so if you have a 2H or a 4H or a 6H pencil, the higher the number, the harder it is. This is graphite. And so it gets a little shinier and it gets crisper. Your lines get very crisp and actually harder to erase. On the other side, the B, that means darker. So the higher the number, 2B, 4B, 6B, then your graphite gets smoother and darker, and it's actually easier to erase. So I use 2B, 4B, and 6B, so I use the B scale in my drawing because it shows up darker so that you can actually see it on my paper. So I don't use a number two pencil, but you can use a number two pencil. I would if it showed up properly, but you can't see it as well with the camera. So you are welcome to use this, and that's all you really need. It's a number two pencil and a piece of paper. I have this drawing set that I use. It's called Gioconda by Kohinoor is the brand. I like their brand. They have really good quality pencils, so I use them. Also, the lesson plans that I use are from this group, Chart Pack, who makes Kohinoor. So, I try to support them. But my pencil set comes with, and this is kind of important, and I do use these a lot. I attempted to sharpen it today because you should be able to sharpen these, but mine just ended up getting eaten up, so it doesn't like this sharpener. So I'll take a knife to it and make it smooth it out so it looks more like this side. But it was just getting a little dirtier than I wanted it, and I wanted it to be more sharp, so that's why I took a sharpener to it. And normally you should be able to sharpen these. And it'll just come out like a smooth white. Anyway, this is compressed newsprint, and what you can do is you can use it it's called a spreader, or sometimes called a blending stump, and it's a way of smoothing out and blending your pencil lines. I do recommend investing in one of these if you enjoy drawing. You can still use it with a number two pencil, but this makes it really nice to be able to shade and get into like little tiny areas, little corners and things. You can buy these by themselves at Walmart or Michael's or any kind of store like that. They're not very expensive for like a 2-pack of those. There's also, this comes with a kneaded eraser, so you can knead the eraser to like the shape you want, and then you can erase like, just a tiny little area rather than a big fat corner. It has graphite, lead, and charcoal pencils, as well as sepia tones. Sepia is basically just a reddish brown tone. And I will be using these today. So if you have like a colored pencil, like especially a red or an orange colored pencil, I recommend grabbing that. Otherwise, if not, just go ahead and continue using the number two. It's no problem. I'm going to set this over here. I have a couple of erasers. So besides the eraser that's on the top of your pencil, it's nice to have like just some hard rubber erasers. Those are really great. And then I have a pencil sharpener, and I like to use makeup pencil sharpeners. So you can buy these at like Sally's or Ulta or any beauty supply store. Star should have these, and they're made for dealing with wax pencils, so they can handle charcoal and some of the heavier pencils. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is, if you notice, I've got my Discord server here in the bottom of the screen. Also, there's a button down below that says Discord on it. That will take you to the server. I post my reference photos there. So if you look, I'm going to actually show you. I'm going to pull up my Discord. So if you look at Discord, there's, all of these channels on the left. The one that says reference photos is the one you want to come to. This is the drawing we're going to be doing today. So this is really great. I highly encourage you to join the Discord server and get your reference photos if you're going to be following my classes, because it helps to have something to look at and not just following along. You can do it just by following along, but if you have a reference photo, it's just nice to be able to see where you're going. It just helps with big picture. So there's that. All right. Without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to be using a 2B pencil again. That's so that you guys can see it better. But you can absolutely use a number 2 pencil for this. First, we're going to start with our paper in, I'm using like just a regular drawing pad. Let's see, I think I use Strathmore usually. So if you can see the Strathmore. 9 by 12 drawing paper. That's what I usually get. And we have it in the portrait position, which means it's vertical. If we had it horizontal, that would be a landscape orientation. All right, we're going to start right below the center of the page. So like if this is about the center here, right below that, we're going to do just a big oval. Now, when I'm drawing, a lot of times I try to look for the shapes in things. So ovals and squares and stuff like that. I try to look sometimes at even teardrop, triangle. And then we're going to do another little circle there. And then we're going to have a line that connects the two. This is going to be our fish. Now remember in the reference drawing we had like a sign that said no swimming. So we're gonna do some perspective stuff here. So first we're gonna draw very lightly, not too. We're just gonna draw crisscross. Like I said, do it very lightly because we're going to be erasing. These are our guidelines. And do a slight angle. And then you're going to do another angle, the exact same, so parallel, but just slightly to the right in this cross. And this is how you get your perspective. All right, now we can erase the rest of these lines. We don't need them. They were just our guidelines. I'm going to erase that center line that I drew. All right, key is always blow, don't wipe. And that's because when you wipe, you can smear. So always blow. All right. We are also going to do a little hook that's coming through. Let's see, I'm going to erase this right here. So right on this edge here, just do like a little, just a little J. And at the top of that J, you're just going to have I'm going to hold this up so you can see it. You have just a little piece that comes this way. Now, coming from behind, so like where you got the top of the sign here, it's going to look like it's coming from behind there. You're going to scoop that up and then just put like a little circle at the top of that. Trying to make that so you can see it. I'll hold that up again so you can see. So you've got a little line that comes up, it's slightly curved, and then a little circle at the top of that. Now, I want you to draw a straight line going from here up. Now, straight lines are difficult, so you can either use a ruler, or what I do, I like to turn my paper sideways. And instead of using your wrist, when you're drawing a line, move your entire arm, like from the shoulder actually, and the elbow, like move your entire arm. So I'm going to draw this and move my entire arm. And that is not very dark, so I'm going to make that a little darker. Now that I have a guideline there, I can go a little slower. There we go. All right. Down at the bottom, hello Flux, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Okay. We're going to go ahead and draw our seaweed at the bottom of the page. So coming from the bottom, we're going to have just some curvy lines, just like some S shapes. And then this one, I'm just drawing almost parallel line, but it does get slightly bigger from the point. Let's see, I'll do another one. This time, this one I'm going to make it cross. Oops, that was a little bigger than I wanted, but that's okay. You know what? I'm going to leave it. That's quite all right. Let's see, this one I'm going to curve even more. I'm just doing some crisscrossy stuff. Let's see. I'll do a little guy coming up there. Maybe another just kind of straightforward one that's like hiding behind. And that's it. I'm not getting too crazy. We're just giving the idea that there's some seaweed going on down there. Okay. Now we are going to do our no swimming. So remember how we had this line? I probably shouldn't have erased it just yet. We're going to have this comes down to the center point. This comes out to the center point. Everything comes to the center point. So I just did some, I'm going to hold this up so you can see a little better. But back where that point was, I just did some new lines that all end at that point. Okay, so I'm going to start approximately what looks like the middle of the sign. And I'm just going to start writing no. Now I made mine all caps. You can do like lowercase if you want. So now I'm going to fill these in and just make the lines a little thicker. So I start with my two outside lines and then my center. And I'm working towards the middle. I'm not going to the outside. I'm working towards the middle. Oops. Also, I'm just drawing random lines. So there's that. There we go. Now for this, do a capital S. I'm concerned that if I do all uppercase for this part, that I won't be able to fit it. So I'm going to go ahead and do lowercase. So what I'm going to do is make a second line and go ahead and do my now. These get progressively smaller. So like it's only a little bit, but like the M's won't be as fat like the farther you go away. And the N will be even skinnier. Like so, see how it's skinnier than this one, and then this one is much fatter. And then the same thing, the G is going to be more of an oval. So it looks like it's going away from us. So now we can go ahead and fill those in and make those a little thicker. So all I'm doing is just buffing up my lines. And don't forget your little dot above the I. And it is going to get rather smushed towards the outside, and that's okay. Now I'm going to erase these lines here. And this should be the final erasure. There we go. All right. So we've got our, I'm just going to crisp up my lines because there was a little bit of erasing that took place when I erased the guidelines that we did. Also be aware, it's not a problem right now, and probably not with your number 2 pencil, but if you were using like some of the heavier pencils, that this can smear, so you want to be aware of where your hand is. You can actually use like a paper towel or something underneath your hand, and that will stop it from spreading. My S looks like very high for some reason, so I'm just going to make it fatter. There we go. Of course, now it looks darker. Well, it's okay. The Smudge Master. Nice. Well, and you have a lot of detailed work, too, so I would imagine it probably, like, are you right-handed or left-handed? All right. So now, if we want to darken up our letters, we can. I actually am not happy with how far away this O is. So I'm going to erase my O. Don't be mad at me. I'm erasing my O. And since I made these lowercase, I'm going to go ahead and make this lowercase too. I'm going to put it a little bit closer. You don't have to, though. I just had mine kind of spread apart, and since I erased it, then I figured why not go ahead and just redraw it as lowercase. So you're right-handed and you use paper under your hand. No, that's good. Yeah, like a piece of paper or a paper towel or something under your hand that just protects it. It won't smudge it as much as you think it might to do that, because the paper isn't going to move around as much as your hand does. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start making the shape of our fish. So using the shape that we already have here, we're going to connect, just doing like a curved line. And this is also going to be a curved line, but curving the other way, just like curve under. And we're going to have, let's see, this isn't really the best circle here, or oval. Let me clean that up a little bit. This is going to come down in the front. It'll have like a little kind of hump on the nose, like mine, like a little bump. And then we're going to actually do, let's see. Then we're going to curve this and come meet this bottom line. There, like that. All right. Now, right below this, we're going to actually make some lips, because like I said, this is a comic, so it's supposed to be kind of funny. So our lips are basically going to be two teardrop shapes. One, we're going to be able to see the whole teardrop. So just do a teardrop shape. And then the other is going to come out from behind the other one. Like that. I'm just going to erase out the middle there. Okay, we can also erase this middle guideline. Now that we have our outside shape. We can darken this a little bit. Don't do the whole back of the fin though, because it's not going to be as round as this. We're going to be doing something with it. So for the back, what we're going to do is it's going to flare out. Kind of on both sides, but on the top part, it curves with it a little bit. And then there's like a smile that hits the bottom of that circle. Okay. Let's see. We also need to do the top. It's like our other fins. Okay. So we'll do, let's see. Start kind of on the forehead of the fish. Just a curved line up. And then right at the where that circle started, like right where that meets, we're going to do another curved line. And this will let it be kind of wavy. It's just whatever waviness you can put in there is fine. All right, we are going to have this like kind of a hump there. I would say right to the right of where this starts here, just slightly to the right of that, down at the bottom. And this is just going to come straight out. So it's almost like the letter N, but with really long legs. And then there's going to be a wavy line that goes up. Actually, I want my wavy line to go even higher. So I'm gonna bring my curve just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. I'll erase this line out so you guys can see that shape better. Now, similar to with the lips, we're going to have another one behind it, but we're only going to see the left side of the N. So you do another curvy line going up, but it's going to end somewhere behind this first fin. Then we've got another little guy. Let's see, let's start this about here. We just got a curved line there. And another curved line near the tail. That might be a little bit too big, hang on. Make that a little closer, there we go. And again, you get your curvy line just now for the tail, we're going to basically do kind of a little curvy smile. So it's just a little U shape, a little arc, but just wavy lines. Okay, now we're going to do some lines in these. So just, some of them can be closer together than others. It doesn't really matter. They can be uniform if you want. I prefer them to like be kind of different. I think it looks more interesting. We're going to do the same thing. So what we're doing is we're building. We're building up our fish. Now these are going to fan a little bit, which means that they're smaller at the top than they are at the bottom. So see how it gets a little narrower? And then the last thing we're going to do is at the top, we're going to do like a little, I'm just going to draw it like that, like little hamster, like the little hamster, you know, you've got a J and a backward J, like that. We're going to do that just so slightly at the end of each of these lines. Here, I'll hold this up so you can see it better. But see how I'm just making those curves? And what that's going to end up doing is it's going to make it look like the fin is connected to its edge rather than just having lines. And then what we'll do is we'll darken up the rest of this by just going over it. All right. We can do the same with these if you want. You don't have to. The tail is really the most important part that we do that with. But you can. You can go in and it's almost like it looks like a lowercase cursive I is what it looks like to me. that shape. Okay. Now let's draw our eye in our fish. And it's pretty big because we want it to be kind of comical. All right. Now, if you have a colored pencil, now would be the time to use it. If you have this particular set, you would use your red chalk. What we're going to do is first we're going to fill in our fins. And we're just doing the same pressure all over. I'm not pressing hard in any one area. Same pressure, I'm just filling it in. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to post in the chat. I don't want you going through the whole lesson having questions if you're not sure what to do. Again, just even pressure. If you are using a regular number 2 pencil, then just use light pressure so that these are just they're very light gray. And I'm doing everything in the same direction. So I'm keeping all of my pencil strokes in the same direction. Okay, now we're getting to the illustrative part. And this is what gives things depth. So when you're done, we're going to go back in. Do you avoid the pencil lines on purpose? Smudging? Oh, you know what? I didn't even think about that. I guess I could have just gone right over the pencil lines, but I'm so used to kind of coloring inside the lines. Just, years of teachers telling you to color inside the lines that I just haven't been thinking about that. So no, not really. I guess it could smudge if you were using a darker pencil, like if you were using like say a 6B pencil or something, it definitely could smudge. That's a great question though. I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just kind of going inside of my individual stripes. If you're using a number 2 pencil, you don't really have to worry too much about smudging. Now what we're going to do, that was a great question. We're going to take our same pencil and apply slightly more pressure just at the top of the fin. So just at the top. And of course here it would be at the bottom of the fin. And I'm still doing it, even though you brought it to my attention, I'm still skipping. Force of habit. This is what our teachers do to us. Don't worry about blending or anything yet. You can see that that's creating a line in there. We're going to blend that. Don't worry about that yet. I just want to get that dark in there. Okay. Excuse me just a moment. All right. Once you have the darkened, we're going to come right below that and just very slightly, like same pressure that we used before in the bottom when we were doing the bottom. You just want to use that same pressure and just kind of go right in between. And what that's going to do, it's going to add to what you had before, but it's less than this dark part up here, and that will start to blend it. So you're just not pressing very hard. This time I am going across the lines. So the top part will stay pretty light, and the bottom part is going to be dark. Like that. Now I work sometimes in a slightly circular motion, and I know before I was saying just go with the, just go in one direction. This is where you can use a little bit of a circular motion because that will blend it a little better. You can also get your blending stump. And here, I'll get it just to show you what it does. So I've got a red side that I've been using. And all it does is just blends everything together and makes it look nice and smooth transition. This one I am purposely kind of skipping the lines, and that's just because the blending stumps pick up everything. So it'll pick up that black and it will start smearing the black. And I don't want that. There. Okay. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, sorry, I didn't mean to put that away. I'm not done yet. We're going to do the whole fish, everything but the eye. Now I'm going to start up at the top. We're going to do the same thing where the top is going to be darker than the bottom. So like the same thing that we did in our fins. We're going to blend. So I'm going to start at the top and just lightly get everything done, the whole thing. This makes me think for some reason the way I'm filling it in kind of like an order. I don't know if anybody's ever used one of those like pixel art apps where you can, it's like a little bit of color by number. They tell you what number matches what color, and you fill in the pixels, and then it'll show you at the end the progress of your drawing, so you can watch it, like fill everything in. And so I like to, I'll do those sometimes just for relaxation. And I like to fill them in different orders each time just to see what it looks like when it shows me my progress. I don't know. I just think it looks cool. All right. So I was thinking about that because my, with the way Twitch VODs work is they do like a time lapse. So at some point it will show me filling it in order. But it's time lapse, so it goes really fast. So anyway, we'll see what that looks like. All right, so we're going to do the same thing as before, where we're going to go dark up at the top, all the way around the eye. You can always turn your paper. You do not have to keep it. Like you can always, if it's easier, you can turn it and do whatever you need to with it. You don't have to stick with it in the same position. So I got that filled in. Then I'm going to do the same thing, just a very light pressure right below it. Now this one we might do 2 rounds of pressure. So come down a little lower. I'm trying to be careful not to go into the eye. He doesn't want a pencil in his eye. So I'm going to do 2 rounds of pressure. So I came down, I'm going to do a second round up near the top. And that'll just blend it even more. Now there are ways to just blend as you go, and that just takes practice of getting used to your pressure and like how, you know, doing harder pressure up here and then loosening it a little bit and then loosening it even more and then loosening it even more. Like that just takes practice. So after time, you could just color the whole thing in one go. Like you wouldn't have to do it in this order. But all right, I'm going to actually turn for this. I'm going to use my spreader. If you don't have a spreader, you can use your finger, or you can use a balled up piece of paper or a paper towel. Would work as well. And all this is going to do is just smooth everything together. I do want to do a little bit of something with the lips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it dark kind of towards the outside. I'm just going to do round bits, like just kind of rounded. And then do my lighter pressure right below that. Okay, so we're ready to get our pencil again. Now I want to outline everything. I want everything to be like really nice and dark. You can actually go, if you have a set like this, you could go with like a 4B or 6B pencil. In fact, I'll show you the difference. I'm going to use a 6B and just show you. I'm barely even actually even using any pressure. You can see the difference. It's already pretty dark, and I'm just using regular pencil pressure. And what this is akin to is inking. So in the cartoon biz, or the comic biz, they've got a roll called inking, and that's where you go in and you add all of the dark shapes around it, and you don't always get everything. You know, so I might do this line and this line and this line, and not actually fill all of it in. You know, it just depends on the style you're going for. So you could actually technically use a pen for this if you wanted, like one of those. Well, those don't really draw well on pencil. I was thinking like micron type pens, but I don't think they do well on pencils, so I don't know if that would work. So I'm just doing like little U's down here. Trying to watch my hand and where my hand goes. So all I'm doing right now is darkening all of my lines. And like I said, you can choose not to darken all of the lines. Like you could make it where just some of them are. I'm going to actually darken all of them. But you can get really creative with it. Oops. Went a little outside my lines there. And then my eyes. There. So it just brought that fish out more. So that, like I said, that's the equivalent of inking. Now we've got, on the fish, we're going to do some squiggly lines. And these are going to be like kind of imitation, like gills. And then we'll do a couple of squiggly lines. So in cartoons, a lot of times to give the idea of a pattern, rather than doing individual little... Oh, bye Flex, thank you so much for joining. Sweet dreams. Instead of doing individual scales, they do something like this. They just do a squiggly line, and that gives the impression that there's more going on to the fish, but that way they don't have to fill the whole thing in. Because think about it, if you're doing a comic, like either a strip or a book, you're going to be drawing the same fish over and over and over again, right? So you don't want anything too complicated where you're spending a ton of time every time. So that's when you want to just have something like a squiggly line, and that indicates that there are scales going on. Okay, I'm going to get my 2B pencil again. All right. Let's go ahead and darken in some of our seaweed we've got down at the bottom. So I'm just going to do hash lines, and a hash line is literally just line, 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 like that. And it makes it look more stylized. Now, how dark you do your hash lines, or if you cross hatch, which means to do it the opposite direction, is how much gray you're going to have. So like you have darker gray if you do lines that are closer together, lines that are cross hatched. Of course, if you just draw your lines darker. Just cleaning up the lines there. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing with all of these. Do these little hash lines. All right. Now the way they've got it in the reference drawing, again, if you're just now coming on the stream, you'll notice that I have my Discord right here, my Discord link. It's not really a link on here, but if you look down below, there should be a button that says Discord, and that is a link. And so that will take you, and there's a channel called Reference Photos, and that will have the reference photo. You can see what we're working on today. So this top one, I want this to be darker, so I'm going to go over it again. More hash lines, just going over it again. Maybe I'm using a little tiny bit more pressure this time. And I'm going to just come down into this one a little bit. Now in a stylized drawing, hash lines, by the way, what's the difference between stylized and representational? I'll tell you. So in a representational drawing, and I guess technically this is representational because it does look like a fish, but stylized means that it just gives the idea of a fish, but it doesn't necessarily look realistic. This doesn't, if you put a real fish next to that, that is not what it looks like, right? It's more cartoonish, you know. Tattoos, for example, are stylized. You know, I can show you this one I've got. You know, yes, it's a pirate flag, but it doesn't look exactly like a pirate flag, right? You know, it's got the outlined, you know, a real flag wouldn't have outlines like that. So tattoos are stylized usually. They don't. Every once in a while, though, you do get realistic tattoos. That does happen. Okay, so in this one, we're gonna have. This one's gonna be dark, and this one's gonna be dark. And we're skipping, and so I'm doing just a little bit at the top of these. Okay, now this one back here is recessed, which means it's farther back. So I'm going to just go ahead and right away do my lines darker because I know that I want it to look like it's farther back. We're going to go and redo our lines in all of these. So don't worry, even if you go over a little bit, it's okay. Or if they start to blend together, like where I can't see this one in front anymore. Don't worry about it just now. Not just yet. We're going to fix that. This guy is lighter, this little guy. Almost done. Now on this one was darker at the bottom than it was at the top. Okay. Now I'm going to take my 6B pencil. If you are using a number 2 pencil, you just press down a little harder. But I'm going to go ahead and outline this. Again, this is the inking part. And what it'll do is it'll actually catch all of those like little tiny lines that were outside. Trying not to put my hand on it too much. All right. And if you wanted to, you could take, if you are using a darker pencil, you could come in here in some of the dark areas and add a few more hash lines if you wanted. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our bubbles coming from the fish. I'm going to grab my 2B pencil again. So we have different size bubbles. Now you want them to be pretty round. So remember what I said when we were drawing the line, the straight line? You want to move your entire arm, not just your wrist, right? So I'm going to actually turn this upside down so I'm not touching my fish. We're going to do one right above the fish. This is harder to do because now I don't have freedom. Ugh. All right, let's try this way. I didn't have the freedom to move my arm because I was up against that. Okay, let's try this again. Now it looks almost imperceptible that but I was moving my whole arm, I promise. All right, we're gonna do a slightly bigger one. I'm going to do an even bigger one. And then our biggest one yet is going to go off of the page like that. Ta-da! Now, there are other ways to do bubbles. So like you could do like a grid. So you could do like that. So that's another way to do a bubble, and then you just erase out your lines like that. I'd like to just draw them, but I also have experience. So the other thing you could do is you could find something that's like the size that you want and just trace around it. You know, this has a round shape, so I could just, you know, do that too. Lots of ways to draw circles. And my circles aren't perfect, and I think that's okay. Like, I think generally it's okay to not have, you know, be completely perfect. And in fact, if you go in and ink these, you can ink them so that it covers up your, like any mistake lines that you have. Oh man, sometimes how I wish I had undo. At some point I'm going to start teaching digital drawing classes, because I really wish I just had not even touched that. I thought it looked fine the way it was. The only way to draw a perfect circle is using a compass. That is true. I just don't have my compass on me. It is in my school stuff, somewhere in a box. But Bumbread, you are completely right. And by the way, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining. So now you have a decision to make. You can leave this like this and be done. Or if you wanted to show some motion in the, cool. Well, thank you, Bumbo. I appreciate you being here. If you want to show some motion in the water, something else you can do is you can draw like these kind of wavy lines that go through. Let's see, let's do now in the reference drawing, it's got them going through everything, but that annoys me. I did not just take all my time drawing these, you know, the bubbles and the fish and everything to just draw a bunch of lines through it. So I am not drawing directly through the fish. Okay. Now what we're going to do with this is just very lightly hash it. And all this does is it just gives the appearance that there is movement in the water. And these hash lines can be a little bit farther apart. They do not have to blend. You know, we wanted the seaweed ones to blend a little bit. These don't have to. Bumbo, were you following along and doing the drawing? Oh, you're just watching? Now this one I am going to clean up my lines a little bit. Just cleaning up my hash lines. All right, now I'm going to alternate direction. So in this one, I went this way. This one, I'm going to go the opposite direction. And this will give the indication that the water is moving back and forth. It's undulating. And I'm just going to alternate like that for all of them. So this one I'm going to go this opposite direction. Now, if you are on my Discord server and you have been following along today, I encourage you to take a picture, use your phone or whatever, and take a picture and upload it to the server in the art, let's see, it's the Art Crit channel. And that is a channel where everybody shares their artwork, regardless, it can not even be artwork that you didn't have to follow me. Like if you have your own artwork, for example, Flux, who was on earlier, he does his own style of artwork. And so he posts his stuff and we talk about it. It's just a place where we can talk about our art. It's so funny that when I go in this direction, I always have to clean up more than when I go in the opposite direction. Who knows? Now, if we were doing a more realistic drawing, we would probably shade our bubbles. Since we're not, then we're not going to shade our bubbles. We'll leave them like this. You can ink them if you want to come in. I would not ink these lines in the background. I would let those stay, but you can ink your bubbles. This is an opportunity to also clean up any lines. So it's called inking even though I'm using pencil, but it's basically all it is going in and making your outlines. And this is what an inker would do. An inker would decide which lines need to get ink and which don't. I might leave this fishing line light, but then come in here and do the hook a little darker and do the sign a little darker. There you go. Now, you got to sign it. So I like to sign in the bottom right hand corner, but you can sign wherever. And there you go. We have our no swimming fish comic. But you can see where this is more stylized, because we didn't do as much shading as we would in a real fish. Like bubbles, we didn't do any shading or anything with the bubbles. The only super realistic thing about it was when we did our perspective lines so that we got the no swimming kind of going off into the background. So there you go. Does anybody have any questions? Also, did anybody share their work? I can go look at Discord real quick and just see if anybody shared. Doesn't look like anybody shared their work, so I'll just do a critique on mine. So what I like to do is do a critique of the work, because I think it's really important to be able to talk about your work and also be able to look at it with a critical eye. Not critical in a negative way, but in a constructive way. So instead of saying what I like and don't like, although that is nice, you can do that, I like to say what's effective and ineffective. So the most ineffective thing in my drawing, I like to go for the what needs work first, is my seaweed. I could have brought that up a little higher. This piece in particular, the really dark one, I think it would have been more effective if it came higher. Other than that, though, the rest of the drawing I think is very effective. I think it looks very cartoonish. Remember what I said about how cartoons, you don't put tons of detail, you know, just enough to give the idea that there's detail. I think that the perspective in the no swimming is effective. And even like the lines in the background, I think give it nice movement in the water. So other than the seaweed, that's the only part that really could use some work. Other than that, everything else I think I did pretty well. So if anybody doesn't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Tomorrow we are doing a whimsical owl. It is going to be an acrylic painting, and I encourage you to join me tomorrow. That will be at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for joining me today, and have a wonderful weekend.